Now we're going to talk about how to safely set up and fire each of the different types of fireworks. We'll start with the cakes. So what's most important is a very stable platform for any type of firework. If you're setting up on sand at the beach, that's great because then you can burrow everything into the sand a little bit. Hard ground is pretty good as well. Grass you have to be careful of. If it is rough ground or if the grass is a little spongy, you're going to have an unstable base. And especially with the fan cakes, when they fire, they inherently set up a rocking motion. And as you can see, they have a small base, they're top heavy, so inherently they're unstable, and when they start firing, they are going to rock. So it's very important that these be stabilized. And then we have small devices that have to be stabilized. How small is that? You ignite that, it's going to be jumping around like a jumping jack. So all of these need to be stabilized. Let's see how to do that. One of our favorite ways of setting up a consumer show is using pieces of plywood. The advantages of using plywood, one, is it's a very stable platform, and two, it allows us to set the show up in advance and then carry it out to the firing site and just put the plywood down. Now what we do is put screws into the plywood on the four sides of the cake, or you could use 2 screws and just use some strong tape, gaffer tape, packing tape, and wrap it around the screws to ensure that the cake is nice and stable. There we go. Now we can pick this up and move it around, put it in the back of the truck or the car, take it to the beach, pull it out and set it down. Now there is one technique that I have seen people doing that I would heartily suggest that you don't do. In fact, don't do it. Some people will take a screw and screw it actually into the base of the cake, into the plywood. And that is very risky, very dangerous. The reason being is that at the base of the cake is a clay plug, then the gunpowder lift charge, and then the actual component of the tube. Well, when you're driving a screw into that, there is always the chance that you drive the screw into the black powder lift charge and igniting it. So never ever drive a screw into the cake. Always put the screws on the outside into the plywood. You could use nails, you could pound nails in and then gaffer tape around them. Now when you're setting up your cakes, make sure that the fuse is all on the same side. You don't want to put the next cake with the fuse facing inside, so have all the fuses on the outside. And when firing, we can fire on this side and we can come around and fire on this side. You don't want to reach over to the cakes on this side. But this is an excellent way of both stabilizing your cakes and also making your setup time very, very quick. Plastic base items, bombshell, mine, comet, they appear to be relatively stable with a solid base, but they also should be secured. Even with a strong wind can do this to them, and as the devices get smaller, the plastic base gets smaller and the instability increases. So these should be secured as well. And again, we use a piece of plywood. Now in this case, we screw into the plastic base. That is safe because we're not getting anywhere near the contents of the cardboard tube. So one screw on either side, rock solid. And again, you could prepare your show several days in advance and just pick the plywood up and off to the show site. And once again, make sure that you orient the items so that the fuses are all on the outside, and you could go all the way around the plywood with your flare, igniting it very safely. Roman candles and barrages all need to be buried. You can dig a hole in your lawn, or the most common way is to use a bucket of sand. You could use a wheelbarrow, fill it full of sand. It's important that the Roman candle or barrage be buried at least half its length. You can go more, but at least half is necessary. Here I've got two, possibly I put a third one in here, but you don't want to pack it too tight because there's the chance of accidental ignition. When this one is going off, if they're too close, sparks from this one will set off the fuse of your neighboring ones. It will look nice, but your show is going to go up much quicker than you want it to. And finally, the fountains. They don't go anywhere, so it's a lot easier to set up. They're very light, but you can just place them on your plywood or on your sand and light them. Because they have a gentle spray upwards, they're not going to set up a rocking motion. And worst case scenario, if someone kicked the thing over, it's not shooting fireworks towards the audience. So fountains are very easy to set up. Just place them down on stable ground or a piece of wood and ignite.